Now to the battle over executive privilege as Congress investigates the January 6th riot. The Biden administration clearing the way for Trump White House documents to be sent to the committee looking into the events surrounding the attacks on the nation's capital. ABC White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks is at the White House for us with the story. Good morning to you, Mary Alice.
Good morning, Lindsay. The Biden White House holds the cards right now. And yesterday it said it fully supports the committee's work and thinks these documents from the last administration should be turned over because they can help the committee get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th. This morning, former President Donald Trump threatening a showdown in the courts. The Biden administration green-lighting the release of some confidential documents from the Trump White House, saying they should be turned over to the House Select Committee investigating the attack on January 6th. The committee wanting to know what former President Trump and his closest confidants were doing moment to moment that day.
This committee is investigating a dark day in our democracy, an attempt to undermine our Constitution and democratic processes by the former president.
In a letter to the National Archives, where presidential records are preserved, Biden's White House counsel said the documents could help the committee get to the bottom of the events that day, and that any assertion of executive privilege is not in the best interests of the United States. Many past presidents have fought against turning over sensitive communications, citing their right to confidentiality. In his own letter to the National Archives, former President Trump said the documents should be protected. He blasted Democrats, saying they are drunk on power, but this dangerous assault on our Constitution and important legal precedent will not work. The House committee also subpoenaed several Trump aides to testify. Just a few days ago, Trump seemed to suggest he'd be fine with them talking.
I'd like to just have everybody go in and say what you have to say. We did nothing wrong.
But former Trump advisor Steve Bannon defied the congressional subpoena he received, his lawyers saying those questions of executive privilege should be resolved first. The question now, can the committee get these people to comply? After Bannon refused to cooperate, the committee said it was considering holding him in contempt of Congress and making a criminal referral to the Justice Department. Lindsay?
Mary Alice, before we let you go, just want to ask you about a court decision overnight putting the Texas abortion law back into effect. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, just 2 days ago, a lower court had put a pause on that law, but overnight, a one-page order from a federal appeals court now allows the most restrictive abortion law in the country to be enforced again, at least until Tuesday. That's the new deadline for the Justice Department to respond. Lindsay, all of this just creating so much chaos and confusion for women and doctors in Texas.
It's such a contentious debate. Mary Alice, our thanks to you.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube.
Oh, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real World News TV. I'm one of your co-hosts, Reggie Kearney, and with me is Sherry Ann Tappert, all the way back home from her vacation.
Yep.
How you doing tonight, Sherry Ann?
I'm doing okay. As I was saying just before the show started, people used to talk to me when I was younger and I would travel about culture shock going to other countries. And quite frankly, I experienced more culture shock coming back to the States than I do leaving them, especially over the last few years with the weird turn that the country has taken politically, morally, ethically. This country feels more foreign to me than any foreign place I could visit. But otherwise, I'm happy to be back in my own bed and with my puppy.
Well, good. Great. Tonight we got a two-part show. We want to first talk about the subpoenas that Congress is trying to hand out to the members of the insurrectionist team on January 6th, Trump's cronies. And then we're going to talk about the young lady who died an awful death by the hands of, supposedly, it hasn't been established, maybe by the hands of Brian Laundrie. And that's a sad story, but we're going to split the show in half because there's not a lot we can talk about on subpoenas. But we thought it was a good topic to lead off with because it does affect what's going on in this country, because I think it's fair to say that the citizens of this country need to know what happened and what caused January the 6th to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We know why it happened. We know who caused it, but what was the conversation during that time, before and during the time of the insurrection?
What's absolutely ridiculous to me is that, and there's so much, but where do you start? But to start, these folks advertised daily, proudly, what they planned on doing on January 6th. There was no ifs, ands, or buts or confusion about it. They all posted on every social media platform you could imagine what their plans were. The elected officials who were against the impeachment and were against counting the electoral votes as they were counted, and all of that nonsense. It was very clear what their position was. And after the insurrection, they tried every spin doctor perspective you can. Oh, it wasn't us. It was just a tour. It was an American tour. Nothing happened here. Or it was undercover Black Lives Matter and Antifa people who did it, not us. We didn't do it. And if that's the horse you want to stick your trolley to, or the hill you want to die on, then you should be 100% in support of an investigation. So the fact that they're obfuscating this and making it so difficult makes it painfully obvious for anybody who's paying attention that they don't want an investigation. They don't want the truth to get out, because there will be a lot of, well, if things were to go as they should, there would be a lot of people who would have to, answer some questions, possibly get terminated, or possibly go to jail. And it amazes me how the Trump administration and Trump bent the law until it was unrecognizable during their administration to get whatever they wanted done. But now that they're not in control anymore, it's all about the rule of law, the Constitution. These folks don't give a damn about the rule of law or the Constitution. And it's so, I respect those who want to follow the law and the rule of law, like the Democratic Party right now, and those people whose hands are basically tied by following the rule of law. But you're fighting with a group of people who don't believe in the rule of law, who don't believe in the Constitution, believe fully and wholeheartedly in their sense of entitlement to interpret the law however they want to suit their needs now. And I really wish that the Democrats who are in power now would flex a little bit, put their foot down, crack the whip. And I know you're going to shake your head and say they're not going to do it, but it's not going to prevent me from saying I wish they would. It's time to see a little, if ever there was time to see heavy-handedness, the insurrection gave them every reason to be heavy-handed right now. When I worked in government, the merest perception that you were doing something that wasn't kosher in Kansas, you could be terminated or reprimanded or suspended. The level that these people have gone to hide their grift and their would-be, insurrectionist activities, it's very difficult for me to say, okay, don't leave the gloves on, play fair, because at this point, I think all the gloves should be off. I think they should follow the example of the Trump administration and use every trick in the trade, every toolbox in the box to get these folks, especially those who are opening doors to the insurrectionists, who gave tours of the grounds a day before the insurrection to people who were coordinating the insurrection. It's just disgusting. There's no excuse, and I think that they're pussyfooting around this entirely too much.
Well, I'm gonna say it. Democrats ain't gonna do crap, because both parties worry about how many seats they're gonna get in midterm or either in 2024. The Democrats worry about seats every day, and they worry about the independent vote. They worry about stepping on somebody's toes, but they need to take off the glove. And look, this is how I feel about it. I don't care if we as Democrats lose every seat in the Senate, every seat in Congress, as long as we do the right thing to find out what's going on in this country and put a squash to it. Okay? It's just like with the debt ceiling being McConnell finally going along with the debt ceiling being raised the other day. The only reason he did that because the CEO of Morgan Stanley came out and said, if don't do A, B, C, then this is what's going to happen to the United States economy and the world economy. He had to be pushed back into a corner to do it because, like he said, hey, Democrats, you own it, you do it. Democrats went along with McConnell 3 times under the orange head to get things done, okay? But now they want to play hardball, just with the filibuster. Take it off the table. So if they come back in 2 or 3 years and they want to use it, let them use it. But get what you can while you can. Mm-hmm. That's the problem the Democrats have. Biden and DOJ can make the difference in this investigation. Biden could go after Trump if he wanted to. It would be unprecedented because no president has ever gone after another president, former president. But sometimes this guy who was in the White House broke every rule he could possibly break. And I really thought that, I said, I was saying during the election, I said, maybe when Garland and Biden get in office, that DOJ would go after him.
Yeah, silence. And all I can do is pray that they're working behind the scenes and getting all their shit together. But, between the Mueller report, documents, and this whole nonsense about executive privilege, I'm sorry, you're not the president anymore. So if Biden wants to release documentation, he can release documentation. Nothing he did with respect to the insurrection has anything to do with national security outside of the fact that it demonstrates what he did to undermine national security. Mm-hmm. And I think the whole thing about precedents is that they are set at some point in time. So it's time to set a new one if that's what we need to do.
Government is blankety blank up now, okay? Government is never going to be Tip O'Neill days and other guys where the Republicans and the Democrats worked together, hugged and kissed each other and got along. Those days are gone. I mean, they're gone. So now you should do it's a free for all. Because I guarantee you, if the Republicans get back in charge, they're going to stick it to the Democrats.
Oh, yeah. And it'll be ripe with lies.
Yeah.
They'll say that we were at fault for the insurrection. Yeah. They'll blame a Democrat for not releasing the National Guard when they had no power or authority to do that. And we've seen it before. And I just wish that now, I mean, I don't want us to lose all the seats, but I get your point. I wish that people would have the courage of their convictions and stand up for the oaths that they took and defend the country and the states that they work in. And kissing Trump's bespeckled ass and the lobbyists and the super PACs isn't going to get us there.
Yeah.
I mean, this should remind everybody that at the end of the day, we're just meat bags here to make money for someone else. Mm-hmm. And once we're not capable of making money off of somebody else, you'll bleed us dry in whatever way you can, chuck us off on a home to be forgotten. And the next thing you know, when that population starts to get too large, there'll be support for euthanasia. I mean, it's just a matter of time. And the other thing that I was thinking about, well, the one time I thought about American politics while I was on vacation, is that you expect these dinosaurs who've been in office for generations, for decades, to die out, age out, retire, or be replaced. But the fact is, one thing that they are very adept at is molding the minds of the next generation that's going to take over and do what they were doing, both better and worse. Mm-hmm. That we still have young folks with all their hair running for office using the same language, the same xenophobic, and polarizing language. It's mind-boggling in how maniacal it is. These folks aren't just generically and organically coming to these positions from learning history in school or reading your average book. These folks are being molded into these positions, into this mindset that is going to maintain this sort of 1%ers bleeding the rest of us dry. And if we could just figure out where that tap is and shut it off once and for all, we'd be better for it. But it's really amazing at how skilled they are at evil.
Well, it's a thing that they work on every day. I mean, they have a playbook, and that's where they operate from. They expect everybody to be on the same page. They can talk about each other's mama, wives, daughters, children, and everything. But when the dust settles, they're all on the same page. Okay, where you have the Democrats who can't do that because you got the progressives, you got the moderates, you got the go-betweens, in-betweens, and so they can't never be on the same page.
Or at least find common ground.
But they can't find common ground.
It's staring them in the face.
AOC cannot find common ground with Pelosi. Okay. Not Warren, but Saunders can't find common ground with the moderate Democrats in the Senate because they all want something that none of them can have, so they're not willing to compromise. Okay. This is my take on the whole thing. You take what you get, live with, and keep working to get it better. You got to start somewhere, okay? With the subpoenas, no one has really ever been arrested, put in jail, sent to prison for life because they didn't abide by subpoenas. Just like back in with the Mueller papers, and Barr came in. What? Okay, if Barr hadn't come in to testify, what were they going to do to Barr? He was an attorney general. What were they going to do to him? Honestly,
fire him, disbar him. That's a start.
Who was going to do it? Congress can't do it. It had to be his buddy, the president, to fire him. It's up to the Bar Association to disbar him. He hasn't done nothing, quote unquote, legally wrong, really, other than I don't want to talk about it.
Well, again, what you say is true, but it is only true for the people that are on that level. If you and I were to get a subpoena tomorrow, knock on wood, and say, nah, I'm not doing it. You think we'd get away with that?
I'll go and plead the Fifth Amendment. Plead the Fifth. That's all I would do. They can't stop you from doing that. They might get irritated, but I would say, I plead the Fifth.
Yeah.
Mr. Kearney, you know how to spell your name? I plead the Fifth.
Figure it out yourself.
Just irritate them, but it just shows you, how they wield power, how they wield power, I mean, I don't know, they get on my nerves and everything, the biggest comments the Republicans are going around the country now making is that Biden is senile and all this kind of stuff. They really pushing that scenario now. A Republican got into it today. And I said, now, y'all going around telling everybody this. How do you all know? Have y'all gave him an examination? Or we can just look at him and tell him?
Right. Meanwhile, the gobbledygook that came out of Trump's mouth for 4 years is Mensa material. Mm-hmm. Like I said, we're living in an alternate reality.
And so that's why, hopefully the select committee can find some information, but they're never going to finish what they want to finish because, like I said, Republicans are great at dragging things out. Okay.
Sorry about my dog.
Yeah. So they know the mid-year elections are coming next year. Okay. So what they're going to do? They're going to drag this thing out, hopefully, and hoping that they will win and they can squash it. And that's how they live.
We need somebody like what was that character, Kerry Washington from Scandal, on the Democrat side, who will, grab the media's attention and, really control the narrative and pinpoint the narrative on the facts of all of these issues. But the Democratic Party doesn't have that. The Independent Party doesn't have that. The Green Party doesn't have that. And why is that? Because at the end of the day, those PR folks ultimately just want to make money, so they're going to go to the dark side. I don't know.
It's not so much the PR folks. It's just that the leaders of the Republican Party, they tell you how you're going to, what beat you're going to march to. Okay, that's just the bottom line. And whether or not you look at what they've done to Cheney. I mean, they basically them blackball her, but she won't march to the same beat they marching to.
Great, then let her flip parties, become an independent.
But she's not going to do that. She's not. She says she's not going to do that. She's going to stay in her party and try to make it right. But that's how they are. If you don't go with the beat, and you out of there. And that's how they do it. But the Democrats, like I said, it's too many drums being beat in the Democratic Party, so they can't get anywhere. So I mean, when I look at it, what they're doing, I just say, I shrug my shoulders and say, yeah, okay, here we go again. We may get something, we may not get something.
I don't know. All I can say is that 9 days in Ireland, it was positively refreshing not to be subject to the news and just everything, just American TV in general. I would watch the news out there, and first of all, I'll tell you, almost every channel that had a comedic talk show host made fun of Trump. So the whole notion of, great international relations it was kind of funny to see it there. And but even the things there that they were dealing with, major societal issues that they would bring up, like trying to save youth at risk for gangs or drugs, people with psychological problems, agoraphobia or what have you, or even murder cases were discussed in a humanistic way and not riddled with language that is meant to trigger and polarize the population. So I had no problem listening to the news there, whether it was English news or Irish news, in comparison to us. And I tried to explain to people there, and this isn't a comment about left or right media, but I was trying to explain to people how positively oppressive it is on the psyche and one's mental well-being to see the crap that we have on TV every single day with respect to politics and crime and things of that nature. We are all about the American dollar and greed and immediate gratification. That's it. And if it doesn't feed any of those elements, it's immaterial. It doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. You'll have a puff piece for a day and then it disappears. And I really wish that we could get back to a place of empathy for each other and understanding and education. But again, it's all about manipulation. And of course, all countries manipulate. All political entities manipulate. That's a fact. But I think some are worse than others. And right now, this country seems more foreign to me than any country I've visited over the last several years. And I'm at a loss. If we don't hold these folks accountable for the insurrection, if Trump never gets his comeuppance, if Mueller and all of these dying breed don't get their karmic retribution, and we lose the House and we lose the Senate in the next race, and some new asshat takes over, like the My Pillow guy who was going to try to run, I don't know that I can stay here and continue to fight for this country. This country's heading in the direction of imploding. And I don't know much like climate control. I don't know if we're at a point of no return.
It's already imploded.
I mean worse.
We're walking around here like zombies now because we don't know what's going on in this country. It's like we elect politicians to work for us, but they're working for themselves now. The only people they're thinking about is themselves. They're not thinking about the American public. That goes for both parties. We are afterthoughts. Okay, so you start saying to yourself, why should I vote? Why should I wonder what's going on? I was looking at The View today, and one of the comments that they made on there is that we are such in a bad state in this country, and we're not getting anything done. It's the same old. What reason should you go out and vote in 2022?
Well, I would say most assuredly so that it can't. So, look, it's going to get worse. That's a fact. Yes. Until we can deal with these 70 million people who voted for Trump, who still blindly support him and everything that they did, until we can address the issue of supremacy and misogyny in this country, it will get decidedly worse. And for that, I think voting gives us a little more rope. It buys us a little more time. If you don't vote, that horror happens tomorrow. If you do vote, we might be able to give ourselves a little time before that happens so that we can get our shit together and decide what we want to do as individuals. Do we want to stay here or expatriate? Do we want to stay here and watch it implode, or go someplace and enjoy what's left of our lives?
You're right about that, because me at my age, I'd like to get the next 20 years in, if possible, being happy,
Yeah.
not being depressed every day about what's going on in our country, because you long for the good old days when government, everyone worked together for common good.
Yeah, well,
And with the congressman from Georgia, what was his name? That came out with the Contract for America. Gosh, I can't even think his name yet. That's where everything changed at.
You saying that and watching some comments about our producer who's going to upload a video shortly reminds me that our population has become titillated with horror. We are more interested in the drama and the horror and, new groups finding ways to victimize themselves and colonize the vocabulary of victimhood. But speaking of horrors, the second topic that we were going to cover today is the disappearance and then discovery of Gabby Petito. Tony, do you want to play that video now?
There's new information tonight regarding the search for Brian Laundrie. His family reported him missing exactly 3 weeks ago today.
We are learning more about the efforts that law enforcement made to keep an eye on him before he disappeared. News Channel 8's Olivia Steen joins us now live from outside the Laundrie home in Northport. Olivia.
Well, a spokesperson with Northport Police told us today that law enforcement, including the FBI, they were all watching Brian Laundrie before he disappeared. In a press conference the day before Brian Laundrie was officially reported missing, Northport Police said they had eyes on him.
All I'm going to say is I know where Brian's at.
Authorities tell me they did everything they could within the law to monitor Brian based on the facts and evidence they had at that time.
It's very frustrating because we don't know what they know, and they're not sharing a lot of stuff with us, I believe. So it's kind of hard to know if he's going to be found soon, if he's going to be found at all.
The search for Brian Laundrie is heading into week 4. Efforts appear to ramp up this week. There was speculation crews found a fresh campsite in the Carlton Reserve, but police say that was not true. We even saw Brian's father, Chris, join the search on Thursday.
I don't know if that was a publicity stunt or what, but for 3 weeks they've just been silent, so it's frustrating.
Stephanie McKinney drove down from Largo to show her support for Gabby Petito.
Makes me sad because we shouldn't have to be doing this.
Protesters and just people of the community continue to push for the Laundries to share what they know. We even saw a banner flying over their house that read, "In the silence, justice for Gabby."
The more stuff that we have for Gabby, the better, and especially in front of the parents' house, so they know that we're not going to give up.
And here's another piece of information from police. We're told that investigators do not have Gabby Petito's cell phone or Brian Laundrie's original cell phone. So those items are not a part of the investigation. In Northport, Olivia Steen, 8 on your side.
What is that? That's an incredibly sad and disturbing story, and my heart bleeds for the Petito family. But I have to say as well that I'm torn by this story. I appreciate the level of coverage that was given, but I think that when you look at the sheer number of women and children that are missing in this country daily, not even a third of them get that level of coverage. This country likes to act like we don't have a problem with sex trafficking, with the kidnapping of women and of children. And I think to myself, of all of the upsetting news and all of the polarizing news that they shove down our throats on a daily basis, rather than focusing on that, crime is going to happen. You know, a mucking down the street is going to happen. We know that. It's part of civilization. But if they were to give this level of media attention to all of the missing children and women and men in this country on a daily basis, I think, one, hopefully we might find more, we might solve more crimes, we might find more people before it's too late, and we bring light to a major issue, which is domestic abuse. Because I don't doubt at all that this young man had something to do with it. There's no doubt in my mind.
I understand what you're saying. You know, we do need to put emphasis on everything that's going around when it comes to crime that deals with women and children and things of that nature. But this is just a straight up murder, okay? You know, straight up. Yes, there was some domestic violence involved in it, but this is just a straight up murder. They said on the news today that Gabby was strangled. That was the form of death. Dead for about 4 weeks before they found her body. They messed up. They screwed up in their surveillance of the perp. You know, how can you lose somebody when you sit in front of the house? Okay? You know, is he dead or alive? You know, it's hard to say. You know, if he's alive, he's playing hide and seek real good. You know, but I think the parents know something that we don't know, that the officers don't know. They have, if he's still alive, I guarantee the parents will. Probably kind of hard for them to say they heard from him, but I'm pretty sure they got a phone step right now so they can intercept phone calls. But the parents, you know, I put the blame on the parents because the parents should have said, you know, you either go on and talk to the police or we're going to call the police and tell them to come pick you up.
100%. And the witnesses who called 911 on them when they saw him smacking this young lady on the side of the road clearly said, we saw him lay hands on her. It was violent. It looked like a situation of domestic abuse. You know, when we stopped, they, you know, jumped in the car. I mean, to me, this sounds like a battered young woman. And it can't be the first time he laid hands on her.
No.
So there's somebody in that circle, either his parents. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if her parents weren't aware, because unfortunately, a lot of victims keep that to themselves. But his parents had to have known what kind of child they raised, especially at that age. He wasn't long from out of the roost there. And, you know, I hate to put it out there, but, you know, one of the thoughts that I had was, if my daughter went away with her fiancé, your son, and he comes back without her, he's not long for this world. So, you know, they may have to look at her family, certainly be justified, or he's killed himself, or he's, you know, run away living in the woods somewhere. Who knows?
Well, in that swamp near his house, that's the, what they say, is the area almost big as Manhattan. It's a big area, and it's a lot of water, crocodiles, I mean, alligators and things of that nature. You know, then you've heard of sightings of him in the on the Appalachian Trail, 500 miles from where he lives. You know, I don't know. Sometimes my gut feeling says he got out of the country before they could even put out an AP to say, you know, don't allow him to get on a plane or anything like that. You know?
Yeah, and let's just be real blunt and honest here. Again, not to be dismissive of what happened to Gabby, but putting that aside for a moment, we all know damn well that if he had been a person of color, Hispanic, Mexican, African American, Black, any other color, they would have got him the next day. He wouldn't have made it home. He would have been held as a suspect and grilled for hours. And this I'm not answering any questions business would not have washed. It would not have washed. So again, while I'm really distraught for the family and upset that this happened and appreciative of, you know, the no holds bar effort in finding him, albeit belatedly, I can't help but see this as another example of the disparity of treatment in terms of getting justice. Because you look around the country, as of March of 2021, there were over 209,000 women under the age of 21 missing. Interestingly enough, there were over 78,000 boys missing. So we don't hear about that very often. And then almost 60,000 over the age of 20 missing women, but over 95,000 men over the age of 20 missing. So I think it begs a lot of questions. Obviously, there are instances here where people have run away, they don't want to be found. But I can't imagine it's a significant portion of that number. And then you look at what's happening to the Native American community and how
that's off the hook. That might be double.
They are, let's see here, the third leading cause of death among Native American women is homicide, and the murder rates are more than 10 times that of the national average. Not to mention the number of Native American women who get kidnapped, never to be seen again. And that's not covered in the news. You wouldn't see this kind of manhunt out for them. And again, it just goes to how we value people in this country. Gabby was a beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed young lady, absolutely stunning. And as I said before we showed the video, this country is titillated by outrage. And there's certain things the media chooses to focus on to engender and trigger that outrage.
Well, people of color afterthoughts to the press and to law enforcement. You know, you look at the Native Americans have the highest rate of missing women. You know, and there's no focus on that. You know, and it's hard to believe that the majority of them are dead. I think the majority of them are being, trafficked sexually. Okay, they're in the sex trade. They just can't give it. I think the mafia and others are keeping control of, and they might not even be in this country. They might be spread around the world. Working for different organizations, in the sex trade.
Hey, we don't even need to leave the country. You remember that year where it was like 3 different stories of women being found, kept in the backyard, chained, or in basements, or literally locked in a box under somebody's bed?
Yeah.
We have plenty of sickos in this country. If you look at the dark web, when you see they might just stop and take a picture of somebody and say, "I'll grab her for you. What are you willing to pay?"
Yeah.
This country is sick to its very roots, and we don't have the courage to face that.
It's sad. It's sad. That women of color are afterthoughts. That anytime a young white person, be it male or female, is in distress, Clarion Call goes out nationwide to try to find them. They try to find them. People of color, you can hang it up.
Well, yeah, because again, as we've said innumerable times during other shows, people of color are presumed guilty. They're presumed to be engaged in some nefarious activity which would result in their disappearance. They're presumed to be prostitutes or drug addicts or drug sellers or doing something like that, as opposed to your good old American apple pie eating young man who's just slaughtered 9 people but has his whole world ahead of him. So we will continue to watch the news to see if and when they find was it Laundrie? And I do think that they need to sit down with those parents because they must have helped him. He didn't just pick up and leave. He has provisions.
And switching stories real quickly, it's still in the same head. The young man Jelani Day, who was missing. The family has ordered a 3rd autopsy on him amid reports of his organs missing. Okay?
And it's not the first time we've heard that.
Yeah, he was missing for quite a while until they found his body. Okay, but we live in a crazy world. You got a young man who possibly could have been killed for his organs. Because there is a black market for organs.
Yeah.
And Tony's right. There was no all-out manhunt for him. I'm trying to figure out how did they find him? Did somebody? I think a citizen might have found him. Just walked up on the body or something. I think the body might have still been in his car or something, but they found him. Okay, So
Yeah, Tony says he was found washed up on a lake.
on a lake. Okay, so you. I don't know this country and the world because selling body parts is a international thing. It's just not a United States thing. So I take back what I said. A lot of people who are missing could have ended up in situations like that where they were killed for their organs. And it's sad to say. I mean, people want to live. Okay, and people who have money. They don't mind going on the black market and buying a kidney or a heart or whatever they need because there are doctors, surgeons who would do the operation for a certain amount of money. And it's scary when you think about that.
Unfortunately, I'm too sickly. No one would need my organs or want them.
They don't know that unless you got a tattoo on your head. Don't take my organs. You can't use them. Okay.
Yeah, no, and this is the kind of shit that I'm talking about. Like, I didn't hear any of this. This wasn't a part of the dialogue. This wasn't a part of the conversation, And the other thing that I noticed out there was the diversity that was represented on TV and in commercials. And for once, I didn't think to myself, "Oh, that there's a group out here that's pissed off at this commercial." I remember years ago they had a biracial couple on a Cheerios commercial, and people lost their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at my father-in-law and I said, it just shows the conditioning that we have in this country. I know that there are people who have an issue when I see commercials like that here. Didn't cross my mind when I was out there, because it's not as significant an issue as it is here. And there's just the issues and the problems we have are just so bone deep in this country. I don't know that we'll ever.
Well, we so focused on the political arena. Okay, that's what our focus is. Instead of our focus being on family and everyday living in this country. We have to focus on issues that we shouldn't even have to focus on no more, like racism, things of that nature. And that's the biggest one. Murdering of unarmed black men. We got to focus on that. So a lot of stuff that needs to be focused on does not get acknowledged because of energy being put in other areas. Okay, energy needs to be put into missing people. Okay. The FBI needs to do a better job of interviewing people and searching for people. It's so out of hand now. If they were able to get 1% of the people found, they'd probably be doing good. Because some of these people have been missing so long, you wouldn't even know where to begin to look for them. So we have so many disconnects in this country that make you really wonder how this country even is recognized by other nations as a great nation. Okay,
forget about those 5,000 children that we still haven't found that were separated from their families at the border under the Trump administration. You don't hear a peep about that anymore in the news.
Well, 60 Minutes had a piece on that the other night, and they had the number is still large. It's not as large as 5,000, but what they have been trying to do with this current administration is try to put kids back to with their family. They have made some headway, but it's a work in progress. They were talking to this one mother that, and they say this mess of taking kids from the parents had been going on for about 5 months before the general public even found out about it.
Mm-hmm.
But this one lady said she came in the country, her papers, somehow she screwed up her papers and filling her papers out and bringing them with her. And so the U.S. government was trying to say that she was a smuggler, that she was trying to smuggle the kids in there. So they yanked the kids from her. Well, and they made her go back home and told if she ever come back to this country again, she'd be banned for life. So the ACLU and some other organizations got involved with her. So she eventually came back to America. This is 5 years later, almost, because I think this stuff started happening as soon as Knucklehead got in office, and she was able to reunite with her kids. But she said the reason she brought her kids this way out of El Salvador, I believe, was because of the gangs and things of that nature. And she said she had been put out of the country before because of the simple fact she wasn't a citizen, so she tried to come back again. So she had a grown daughter here, and her granddaughter was still living here. And so what they did, they took the boys after they hung out to dry for a while, and they reconnected with their sister in Indiana. And then they got the ACLU and other organizations help the mother get her information straight, and she's back in the country now. She still got to go for a hearing to stay in this country, but they did work on it. But it's a slow motion process. Okay.
I just don't trust this. The last administration and this administration, I'm not so sure about, but the number of children that are being forcibly removed from their parents with no evidence of physical abuse or mental abuse. We've seen a lot of incidents of that happening in the African American community recently, where parents are doing home birthing, and then CSS or whatever the acronym is comes out there and takes the child because they didn't get one vaccination or something, some ridiculous excuse. And the very worst part of me up here that's thinking conspiracy is like, what are they doing with these children? Are they, because there were some stories coming from the border that, kids were being given injections without anybody's approval or knowledge. Are they giving them sterilization drugs? I mean, what are they doing? I don't trust it.
But what in the, what made that administration think taking kids from their parents was going to solve anything?
I don't think they thought it was going to solve anything. Well, the only thing that it solves is sort of in keeping with the old sort of imperialist program of, like separating Native American children from their parents to beat the Indian out of them and raise them into the white man's world. And they did the same. The Catholic Church did the same thing in Ireland, taking children from unwed mothers and giving them to other people. It's nothing about, it's just pain and brutality and control. There's a masochistic, sadistic thing about this. There's nothing in it that is, there are times when separating a child from their parent is the right choice when you have a clear and obvious case of neglect or abuse. Mm-hmm. But what was happening at the border, people clearly running for their lives, looking for a better life. A mother with 3 children in her arms is not drug trafficking. And if she were, it wouldn't have been something that they wanted to do, more than likely, but something that they might have been forced to do by the, what do they call them, the coyotes that bring them across the border. There's a lack of any kind of empathy or understanding when it comes to people of color.
So should we, and I'm just throwing this out there, how much sympathy should we have for the family, Gabby and Brian's family? How much, when we know there's so much going on in our neighborhoods, where we probably got young ladies in the streets of New York and other large cities getting, yanked at least once a day. Somebody's getting yanked by some person that's using them for another purpose.
Well, let me be clear about my position on that. The Petito family gets every ounce of sympathy that I can muster, full stop. What's going on in this country, despite their privilege, it's not their fault necessarily. It's not their fault necessarily outside of their ignorance of the system, that they get to benefit from that privilege and that attention. I blame the system. I blame the people who are in control, who have a vested interest in maintaining this disparity of justice.
But somehow, well, no, I said somehow we got to get on equal footing, but that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. We're always going to be behind the 8 ball because we're people of color. We don't count. We don't count.
Hold on a second. Just a minute. Okay, never mind. Somebody rang the doorbell, and I didn't think my husband was available to answer it, but he got it.
But we just a number here in this country.
Yeah.
We carry no clout whatsoever.
Yeah, well, again, if we could muster up our own community to give strength to the voice that we know we have, if we could have the same unity of voice and intent that you have in the Jewish American community, that you have in the Korean communities, then we would be a force to be reckoned with. We would have our own strong voting bloc, but we are too busy fighting amongst ourselves and be distracted by the bling and all of that other nonsense to do what needs to be done.
It's such a big disconnect in the Black community. It's just a big disconnect, and I mean, we don't have a civil rights leader now that can really bring the community back together. We've had those individuals who have tried. Entertainers have tried. Everybody has tried, but we're all on our own program. We either care or we don't care, and it's probably more of us that don't care than care about what goes on. You look at the raising of kids today. The parents aren't really instilling in them pride and giving them a voice to know that, hey, opportunities out there and we need to come together. We're not. It's just, I mean, I could go on and on about the disconnects in our community. It comes, from sports figures that are making multi-million-dollar a day playing sports and how they're disconnected from the community. Our politicians are disconnected from the community. If the politicians that are in Washington now, both Republican and Democrat, will raise awareness to missing people in this country, missing people under the age of 40 in this country, something would be done. But it's brushed. They don't even pay attention to it.
No, because they can't vote.
Yeah, they don't pay attention to it. They're trying to figure out who's going to keep the filibuster, who's going to reconcile the bill and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's crazy.
It's depressing. It's
so. I don't let it get me down. I'm concerned, but the last thing I'm going to do is let it get me depressed. I'm going to go on with my life and live it. It is what it is. We're at a crossroads in this country now. People better realize that fool gets back in office again, it's going to be a death of democracy, and that's what a lot of people are afraid of, that he would get in and knowing that he can't run a second term, it would be a revenge tour for him. And he would try to tear this nation down as much as he can.
He would. Be trying about it. He would.
And he would leave this nation. He would leave the presidency laughing that he tore it down.
That's assuming he left after winning his second term.
Yeah, he'll leave. Well, he might leave the country but I was talking to someone today and it said, with the powers that be in the world that are billionaires and control a lot of what goes on in this world, money is very important to them, and they can't stand losing money. That if he came back in here acting a fool, somebody said, he had a heart attack and we thought he was healthy. Okay.
Please, when you look at all of the industries and the companies that fed the super PACs for him, that funded his rallies, funded the insurrection, it really paints a picture of the one percenters for whom it is in their best interest that he is in control of the sugar industry, the agricultural industry, the mining industry, the pharmaceutical industry.
The one percenters don't even want him no more. This guy is about $1.5 billion in debt. Okay? The one percenters don't even want him no more. He's a liability. Himself, he's a walking liability. Okay? He's about $1.5 billion in debt. How can one individual? Well, first of all, he flunked, other people took his test in school, so he probably doesn't know how to add. But you $5 billion in debt, sooner or later, the 1%ers ain't gonna want you around.
You see, they took his plane.
You see, the one plane he used for campaign is at an airport falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
He can't afford to refurbish it or fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to take Learjets around the country now. Somebody said it's funny seeing him get into a Learjet.
I can't with him. I hope that in our lifetime we see him and his cronies get the karma that they so richly deserve.
Oh, he will. I tell some people sometimes 2024 is a long ways from here. A lot can happen between now and 2024. You know, God rest his soul. You know, so we just don't know what is in store for him.
Yeah. Sorry for yawning, folks. I'm still dealing with the 5-hour time delay from where I was there. It's like 10:30. It's 2:30 in the morning in Ireland now, and if I were there, I'd be struggling to fall asleep. So. Save me, Tony. Save me, Tony.
So
I got one eye open.
Did Reggie say, God rest his soul?
Yes, he did.
That's right.
In hell. Yeah.
That's why I said we don't know what's going to happen between now and 2024.
Reggie. Okay, I'm going to let you have it.
Yeah.
Good show, you guys. Thank you. Appreciate you. I'm going to let you go real quick.
Well, there was that funky plant behind you again. That plant cracks me up.
Oh my God. My little weepy willow thing. I'm going to get you out real quick. So tomorrow night on Hot Topics Talk Radio, can sex be a cure-all for couples challenges? I don't know where Yvonne gets this stuff. That's what she does.
No, it can't, because eventually it gets sick of the D. It's not all there is to be. I'm sorry.
That's what we're talking about tomorrow night.
Have fun. I'm gonna be asleep.
Right. So the short, come back to Real World News TV every Tuesday night here with Reggie Kearney and Miss Sharon Tappan. Mm-hmm. Show starts always at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Central, 10 o'clock. No, I'm just messed up.
Oh, you're killing me.
Good night.
5:30.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
I know, because we're all tired. 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Central, 8:30 on the East Coast. So make sure you follow them right here on Facebook so you can get show notifications when they are on and what the topics are. Come back tomorrow night with, who am I with? Hot Topics Talk Radio with me and Yvonne Baker. The show starts at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 9 Central, 10 o'clock on the East Coast. Tomorrow night, can sex be the cure-all for a couple's challenges? So that's what we're going to talk about. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to let these people go to bed real quick. That's it.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.